This is the download from Sounds Profitable. The most important news from this week and why it matters to people in the business of podcasting. I'm Manuela Bedoya.
And I'm Shreya Sharma.
The download is brought to you by Magellan AI. Track the trends in spend, ad load, podcasts on YouTube, and more with Magellan AI's advertising benchmark report for Q1. Available now. You can find a link in the description or visit magellan.ai.
This week, new study on the optimal number of ads in a podcast ad break. The IAB releases new podcast advertising revenue report. Wondery is launching video channels on Freevee, and Ad Exchanger finds Netflix is serving fewer ads than 10 months ago. Let's get started.
This week from Ad Results Media, ARM has completed a 14-month study of how podcast ads perform based on a number of ads in a commercial break. The analysis takes into account over $80 million in ad spend and compared performance among different buckets of ad counts in an ad break. Their findings show podcast ads perform best when there are only 2 ads in a break, scoring 12% better than breaks with 3 or 4 ads. While they found no significant difference between breaks with 3 and 4 ads, once breaks reached 5 ads, performance dropped to 46% worse than breaks with 2 ads. ARM's findings reaffirm the belief that less is more. The fewer ads a podcast runs, the more attention they're likely to receive before a listener reaches for the 30-second skip button.
This Monday from Digiday, Wondery podcasts are coming to a smart TV near you. The podcasting company is putting shows onto 3 free ad-supported television, that's FAST channels, on Freevee, also owned by parent company Amazon. When they go live on Halloween, these 3 channels will be the first Freevee channels dedicated to podcast content. Wondery has found success in producing video content of some podcasts on YouTube and is taking that experience into releasing the same content on their own video platform, featuring a mix of animation, on-camera interviews, and animated show artwork, accompanying audio clips from popular Wondery properties like Business Wars and Dr. Death. Freevee will handle monetizing the podcast channels, making Freevee an early example of Wondery further integrating into Amazon's advertising stack.
A new IAB study was published this week, conducted with PwC. The study is built from responses to an in-depth quantitative survey of leading podcast publishers, as well as discussions with industry experts. Key findings include the majority of podcast advertising is used for brand building, making up 61% of total ad revenue, a 13% increase in the last 2 years. Usage of brand safety and suitability measures has nearly doubled year over year. 69% of publishers answered yes to using podcast ad brand safety and suitability solutions this year, compared to 44% in 2022. Dynamic ad insertion represents more than 90% of podcast ad revenues now, up from 48% in 2019. For all the progress, there's still room to grow in podcasting. Programmatic podcast ad revenue, for instance, has grown to 5 times last year's total, but still only amounts to 11% of total podcast revenue.
Back in January, Ad Exchanger's Alyssa Boyle tested ad-enabled Netflix with a brand new account. At the time, she received an average of 4 minutes of ads per hour of content. Now, Boyle has returned this week with reports of life on Netflix if one comes back after 9 months. After a consistent email campaign from Netflix to reactivate the dead account, Boyle has returned to Netflix and done several hours of testing over multiple shows. Instead of a 4-minute ad average, Netflix served just 15 to 30 seconds of ads per hour of content. Tests included watching 30-minute episodes of an animated series, an episode of an hour-long docuseries, and several 45-minute episodes of Netflix's Is It Cake? In some cases, less is more with advertising. Discovery Warner Brothers makes a point of limiting how much ad space is available on currently running exclusive shows to make what little ad space is available all the more valuable. In podcasting, we've got research like the recent Ad Results Media findings showing just 2 ads per break have better performance. Sometimes fewer ads creates a better product, which attracts more subscribers, generating more revenue in the long run. Finally, it's time for our quick hits. These are articles that didn't quite make the cut for today's episode, but are still worth including in your weekend reading. This week, How Branded Podcasts Might Be One Key to New Listeners by Tom Webster. The potential reach for podcasts about favorite brands is around 106 million 18-plus Americans, according to The Power of Brands in Podcasts, a podcast landscape study. Good Tape Issue 1 now available. The first issue of a new print industry magazine featuring journalism and cultural criticism of podcasting is now available for order. Readers and listeners of The Download can get 10% off with promo code SP10. Archives to Earbuds, podcasts for cultural institutions. This coming Monday, Jessica Alpert of Rococo Punch will moderate a panel of experts, hosted by the Podcast Academy and presented by the Leo Beck Institute. I, for one, plan on attending this panel, so I hope to see you in the chat. Here's How Our Top Podcasts of the Year Get Listeners to Stay by Karen Burgess. Pacific Content takes a look at 5 branded podcasts that successfully use storytelling to not just perform well as branded content, but as podcasts in general. McDonald's Jingle 20 Years Later by Alyssa Myers. A history of the fast food jingle that's still going strong 2 decades later, showing the power of well-curated sonic branding. YouTube Culture and Trends Report 2023. 55% of respondents watch content that no one else they know watches, indicating the trend of hyper-personalized content is growing. Good news for podcasting. Co-Host announces the launch of its prefix that aims to demystify podcast audiences for brands and agencies. The new prefix provides both advanced audience demographics and B2B analytics that track what companies are listening to the podcast.
And that was The Download, brought to you by Sounds Profitable. I know we went through today's stories fast, so be sure to check out the links to every article mentioned right in your podcast listening app or on soundsprofitable.com/podcast. And thank you for sticking with us as we bring you the top stories you might have missed from the past week. I'm Manuela Bedoya.
And I'm Shreya Sharma. Our producers are Brian Barletta, Gavin Gaddis, and Tom Webster. Special thanks to Art19 for hosting The Download. And thanks to you for joining us. Robot?
Download complete.